Good morning, I'm Maha Awad, and we are live with you from the LinkedIn Hub on day 4, the final day of Advertising Week. And my first guest this morning is Suzanne Powers. She is the Global CSO at McCann. Suzanne, I want to start off, there's so many different interesting things going on, and you guys as a full service agency are you have your finger on the pulse of all of these different things. But being it that there are so many different things, and traditionally advertising has kind of worked in a very siloed fashion. Every group or every department is doing their own thing, and it seems like that model isn't really working anymore for clients, and especially given the fact that consumers now, their journey is so all over the place because they have so much access to information all the time.
Yes.
So I want to talk about that, what you're seeing in terms of trends on how that is changing.
Yes. So human beings do not separate. We separate. We in the industry separate. They don't separate. They don't think of a different experience with a brand as, I'm now on my mobile device. I'm now in the grocery store aisle. I'm now watching a television ad. And
did you take note of that?
Yes, exactly. And because of that, we have to behave in a very seamless and holistic way. So what we always try to do is start with that human being, really understand who they are, what makes them tick, how do they move through their life, where are the moments that we can potentially earn a role in their life, and how do we do that in a respectful, meaningful way through any point of contact that we have. And in order to do that, we need all of the full gamut of marketing services to deliver that, which is why we've set up the company the way we have.
So what's happening in terms of being able to merge that together? Is it just like making sure that there's really open communication between the different areas, or is it like, I don't know. You tell me.
Yeah, well, I'm the nerdy strategist, so I'll always tell you. I'll tell you, we start with the strategy, and we start looking at it very holistically. And that at least begins our creative process. So when we begin that way, we never have one certain execution in mind or one thing that we're trying to crack. Now, one thing that we're trying to do with clients is help educate them as well, because it can't just be us and it can't just be them. It has to be everybody together, and they still often buy agency services very separately. They'll do, I'm sourcing my sugar, I'm sourcing my flour, I'm sourcing my TV, and I'm sourcing my digital, all very separately. And so, that's why we think the strategy piece is a very big important part. It helps us at least start in one way. It helps us steward that brand experience or those product experiences that we're trying to create in one way. And at least it helps us be responsible towards our consumer and towards those human beings that I mentioned before to get to them.
Absolutely, and I think also, that then brings us to the, one of the biggest buzzwords of advertising week and just the industry in general right now, relevance and scaling relevance. And so, yes, I know, I can't say it with a straight face anymore. But you touched upon when, so you've got your consumer, you've got your target buyer who's kind of moving through life, like you were saying, very seamlessly. And so how do you find those little points that make it meaningful, make it relevant, without messing it up, because it is easy to mess up, and I don't think you get a second chance if your consumer gets an ounce of feeling intrusion, you may lose them forever.
Yes, and I think that's the hardest thing that we have on hand. It's a little bit of a combination of art and science. So the science part of it, obviously, is things like just understanding through all the different forms of data. I hate to say the word data, but data that we have. It's okay, right? And really just understanding all of those different pieces very, very tightly. We can make the best plans. The best plans sometimes go awry. So the other thing that we have to do is always be ready with a response mechanism. If we do something, or if one of our consumers actually has a bad interaction, we have to be ready. And it's a little bit scenario planning. It's a little bit of crisis management at times, depending how bad it is. And we have to be ready to A, understand that, and B, walk into it very quickly to solve for it.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Nobody's talked about that. Everybody seems to think, no, we've got it. We've got it. We know, or we don't know, and we're still figuring it out. But to actually honestly say, you know what, it's a little bit of both. We've got some of it, but we've also got a backup plan in case that particular thing
and we have to be constantly learning. And that's why we have to. Very quickly when you've hit something very good, because people not only like it, they share it, they participate. We know also very quickly when we've done something very bad. And I say we holistically in terms of clients, agency, together. Exactly. Because they also share it. So you have to watch the way they share, watch the tonality, watch the things that they do with whatever it is that you've put out there, whatever that piece of content is, and be able to respond very quickly.
I think also another thing we've spoken a lot about throughout Advertising Week is authenticity of the brand.
Yes.
What the brand is trying to communicate now in a different way that's not, the old-fashioned, like, look at, all these great qualities about my product.
Yes.
But more, how do I make you connect emotionally? How do I share my values or beliefs with you? And so on. So I want to talk a little bit about that in terms of making sure that it is really fitting or it is really working and coming off that way. Somebody sat with me yesterday and gave me an example about SpaghettiOs tweeting about Pearl Harbor Day. I'm sure that's like the going example in advertising, and everybody knows it. So do you guys, tell me how you guys think through that.
Yeah, authenticity is one of the most important things we do, and yet it's one of those words that's just, I would just call it a big fat word, It's like cool, it's like hip, it's like funny, it's like interesting.
And it makes you feel good because it's so authentic.
But it's so true because we have to do that. And we always start, in combination with starting with understanding human beings, how they move through life, as I mentioned before, we also start very tightly with the brand, the company, the products. How do they make their money? What do they believe in? What is their culture? Because the second that you make stuff up rather than find the truth, you're in trouble, and people will call you on it so much faster. Again, this is a totally different time. You can't pull one over on someone. That went away with the whole Enron thing, but that's gone now. So we have to be really sure that we're telegraphing the truth from that brand, from that company, from those products. What do they do for somebody? What don't they do for somebody? And stay very pure with that. Obviously, in a very relevant, creative way. But that's authenticity.
Absolutely.
And it's hard to find, but once you find it, you kind of feel it, and the clients feel it, and you feel like, yeah, that's right for us. And we call that's brand on. That's right.
Brand on.
Yeah.
My new buzzword
brand
for today.
On.
I got it.
I can give you a new one.
Thank you. Because every day I have one. Well, in addition to the 5 obvious ones.
Yes. That we're not speaking of.
We're not.
Yeah, no.
So I want to talk, I will have to throw one in right now.
Okay,
We're going to have to
it.
talk the big M word, millennials.
Oh, yes.
I know you did a panel on millennials.
Yes.
And you kind of had a reaction similar to what I normally have when I look at some of these people that are, just doing amazing, some of these millennials that are doing amazing. And you also have kind of an interesting perspective on, this mystery of the millennials.
Yes. Well, first of all, I did this panel and I felt like the old lady voice of reason, which is a very strange thing to feel personally, but we'll move on from that. The thing that I found very interesting and still find interesting is every time a massive youth generation comes on the scene, we as marketers, our clients as brand leaders, we get really nervous. We must unlock the secrets of this youth generation.
We have to understand.
These specimens, these aliens, these people that we don't understand at all. They're not like any other youth generation before. They're not like the boomers. They're not like Gen X. They're not like Generation Quick, whatever we call them. They're not. And by the way, Gen Z is coming, so we better hurry up and understand that.
I got to prepare myself. Z.
Yeah,
okay.
Exactly. And it's almost a panic. And some of that panic is due to, yes, they have spending power. But some of the panic is just, we're different than those people, and we're kind of not that different from those people. So yesterday on the panel, I was just sort of listening to the conversation around me because it was a lovely mixed panel. There were actually 1, 2, 3, 5 of us. 3 of them were real core millennial specimens. And as we were having the discussion, they were talking about things like creating relevant content. How are you meaningful as a brand and as a company? And to me, that is not a new conversation. So what they are looking for, what they want, what they're making is not new. It's what we've talked about in this industry forever and ever and ever. Now, perhaps delivering that is different. Perhaps we have more platforms to do it than ever before.
It's just the toys are different.
Yeah, the toys are different. The stuff that sits in my pocket on my smartphone is really different than a TV set that I had, or a long-form print that I used to tell a story in, or a campfire that I used to sit around. So just a lot of different ways to do it, which makes it more interesting, frankly.
So I want to talk a little bit about what you are finding in terms of millennials. So they're not super different. They're not. These particular specimens are like the specimens before them and so on. But what are you finding in terms of, their content creation? Because obviously it is very different, and now it's all about content.
Yes.
It's all about custom content and all of that. And, how to best really work with them and reach them. And I know you're saying that you guys even have several of them working with you.
Yes.
You've infiltrated them.
We have a lot working with us. And in fact, I met with some of them before doing the panel. Just to learn, again, about the specimens.
Right.
And I asked them a little bit. I said, well, doesn't it bother you that you've been labeled? Does it bother you that you're the me generation? And they said no. It's totally fine. Totally fine. That's actually a truth. We are.
I think I'm going to tweet about it.
We are.
I should tweet about me.
Yeah, and I'm going to probably put that up with a picture of you saying, silly old lady doesn't understand that that's okay. But I think what's interesting about that is it does get to customizable content.
Yeah.
It does get to at least a justification of why that makes tons of sense with this generation. Now, that said, it still has to be on an authentic truth, or else we're doing something that is not brand on.
Yeah.
It still has to be served up in a way that's relevant to a target audience,
right.
which there is some pervasive universalities amongst that audience. So it's a little bit of like, yeah, different, but still the same tools that we get to use.
Absolutely.
Slightly different way.
Well, I'm going to wish you good luck
Thank
with
you.
the specimens.
Yes, I know, I know. Hope they're not mad at me.
No, I don't think so. They're tweeting about it.
I'm Gen X, so I'm disgruntled. What can I say?
Oh, yeah, right,
You
exactly.
know? Yeah,
I was just-
slacker. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank
and enjoy
you.
the rest of advertising week.
Thank
Not
you.
a whole lot left, but enjoy what's left.
Thank you.
of it.
Thank you very
so
much.
Suzanne.
Thanks for your time.